If you're a Toy Story fan like us, you know very well that Buzz, Woody, and Jesse's movies are full of happy moments. However, have you ever noticed that several characters in the franchise have already kicked the bucket? And some of them even had some pretty brutal deaths. Sammy's. When watching Toy Story 5, when Woody arrives to help Jesse and the other toys, the sheriff mentions that he's happy to see Sammy, Bonnie's pet lizard. However, upon hearing this, the toys in the room immediately clarify that this is Sammy number 2. The first one had already died before the story even began. We're not told how it happened, whether it was an accident, an illness, or maybe he got run over. But the fact is that the first lizard went to reptile heaven. Later on, the toys use Sammy 2's paw as a stylus to mess with the lily pad screen until he breaks free and runs off somewhere in the family's house. We don't see the little guy die in this scene, but the end credits already list a Sammy the Lizard number 3, which points out that shortly after the end of the movie, maybe when Bonnie went to visit Blaze on her farm, Sammy too ended up passing away. Who knows, maybe eaten by a snake. Combat Carl. Toy Story 5 brought back Combat Carl once again after a few years. He's a character who has appeared in several movies of the franchise, and also in the Halloween special, though always as different action figures. Speaking of him, few people will remember that the first official death in the Toy Story universe was a Combat Carl soldier who was cowardly destroyed by the enemy. Shortly after Buzz arrives in Andy's room, the toys look out the window and witness the disturbed neighbor, named Sid, simply strapping an explosive to the soldier's back and blowing him sky high. We just see the detonation, and since there wasn't a single trace of him left after that, his destruction was absolute, and he deserved military honors after that. Too bad there was nothing left even for that. Wheezy. Jumping now from the first to the second movie, we meet the charismatic penguin Wheezy, who was forgotten on the shelf with a broken squeaker and almost ended up at a yard sale. However, Woody saves him, but the sheriff ends up getting kidnapped by the greedy owl in the process. Later on, with everything sorted out and Woody back in the room, Andy fixes Wheezy's squeaker, and he ends the movie happily singing. In the third movie, we still see him in some home footage, where Andy is watching a movie with him and other toys by his side. In that same movie, when the toys find out that Andy won't be playing with them anymore, since he's heading off to college, during the meeting where Woody wants to organize their move to the attic, they mention that Wheezy is gone.
Lost friends along the way, Wheezy and...
Which unfortunately confirms that the little penguin has passed on to a better place. And this is actually a fact, and the reason for this character's passing is due to the fact that his voice actor had also passed away at the time. So the animators decided it would be best to retire Wheezy's career along with that event. I only have one thing to say. Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Unknown toy. Moving on now to the fourth movie of the franchise, we find a toy that met a sad end. And worst of all, we don't even know his name or what he looked like exactly. It all goes down in the scene where Woody, Bo Peep, Buzz, and a few friends sneak into the antique store to try and rescue Forky. And, in the distance, they spot Dragon, the cat that belongs to the old lady who owns the place. And the terrifying moment happens shortly after, when the cat stands up, and the toys can see a toy that was completely destroyed from the waist up, with only its stuffing showing, and half of its body still intact. We don't know for sure how the dynamic of life and death works for toys, but judging by the expression on everyone who saw the scene, it looks like that life was truly lost, and that toy is way beyond saving. For this reason, we want to pay our respects here to the unknown toy that suffered such a brutal death. Dinosaurs. There's a really good Toy Story Christmas special released in 2015 called Toy Story That Time Forgot. There, when Bonnie goes to a friend's house to play, we discover the existence of the Battle Saurs, who, just like Buzz in the first movie, didn't know they were toys.
except for the cleric, who knew but wouldn't tell anyone, so he could keep ruling over the other plastic dinosaurs. The fact is that at a certain point, he captures Buzz and Woody and is about to throw them into the air vent that has some incredibly sharp blades, and his intention was truly to kill them. And if you stop to think about it, the two friends surely weren't the first ones who were going to be thrown into that toy grinder, since when they looked down, other dinosaurs had already removed the safety grate, pointing out that they had already done this a few other times. Our guess? Every toy that showed up before Woody's group was probably thrown down that vent by the cleric, without any mercy or pity.
Now seriously, after all these details and Easter eggs, I think we deserve your subscription, don't we?
Now our list is going to cover Buzz's death. But hold on, it's a virtual death, but it's still a death nonetheless. In Toy Story 2, we see that Rex, one of my favorite characters in the franchise, is always playing the Buzz video game. But because of his short arms, he can never beat Zurg. The result? Inside the game, our Space Ranger is always fatally pulverized by his arch-enemy from the waist up. In other words, he dies. Good thing the same thing doesn't happen in the real world, since Zurg only shoots little yellow rubber balls instead of deadly lasers. Andy's dad. Now let's talk about a huge mystery that has always surrounded Andy's family. Where is the kid's dad? Ever since the first movie, we've never seen his mom mention him, or even a picture that might point out who he is. Because of this, for a long time, there was a theory going around that he might have been Woody's original owner, but that he had passed away, and as a sentimental inheritance, he left his rare action figure to his son before departing. This legend gained a lot of traction because it supposedly came from Joe Ranft, one of the writers at Pixar. However, Andrew Stanton, co-writer of the first feature film, debunked everything, calling the story pure invention. Even with none of this being canon, the lack of official answers makes a lot of fans still bet that Andy's dad was already dead, even before the events of the first movie.
Geri. Do you guys remember Geri? The little old restorer guy who fixes Woody in Toy Story 2? We know his name, mostly because he's the very same character who stars in the Pixar short called Geri's Game, where he plays chess against himself. If you remember well, you'll recall that back in the second movie, he already looked like he was between 65 and 70 years old, at the very least. Now if we think about the massive time jump from back then all the way to Toy Story 5, he would easily be pushing or passing 80 by now, which is a pretty advanced age. In Toy Story 4, a picture of him shows up hanging in the antique store. There are people who say that Margaret, the owner of the shop, could be his wife, and that he used to work there before kicking the bucket. The portrait itself doesn't confirm his passing, but because of his advanced age, it's almost a given that he wouldn't be alive anymore in the fifth movie, and the picture would just be a keepsake left around the place. Sid Phillips. Since we're talking about the human characters in Toy Story, we need to talk about Sid, and a dark theory involving the movie Coco. In Toy Story 3, the evil former neighbor pops back up working as a garbage man. We know it's him because of his iconic skull shirt, headphones, and his habit of drumming on the trash cans. The funny detail is that, years later, in the land of the dead in Coco, we see a skeleton musician wearing the exact same t-shirt. Pixar never confirmed if it was the same person, so it could just be an Easter egg. However, the visual similarities and the affinity for music sparked the rumor that Sid passed away after the third movie and turned into that skeleton. If it's not just a rumor, at least we know he pursued a music career instead of becoming a serial killer. Scud. Speaking of Sid, his dog Scud for sure didn't get to see the events of Toy Story 5. That's because, in the 1995 feature film, he was already a full-grown dog. Even assuming he was only about 2 or 3 years old at the time,
The passage of time would make him 17 or 18 years old in the 5th movie. Taking into account a dog's life expectancy, Scud would already be dead as a doornail due to his age, way before the new movie started. Now I'm left wondering, could Sid have had a Scud too as well? Alien. While we're on the topic of Scud and his killer instinct, we're gonna have to remember that the dog was also responsible for one of the most brutal passings in all the Toy Story movies. When Sid goes back to his house, after managing to snag Buzz and Woody at Pizza Planet, he also brings along one of those little aliens that was in the claw machine. And guess what the kid does? He puts the alien right on top of Scud's snout, who starts growling, and right after that, simply shreds the little green alien to pieces. Keeping in mind that this alien has no connection to the 3 aliens who later joined the team, a lot of folks will say he didn't die, since a green alien shows up later when Woody and the toys team up to scare Sid. However, logic dictates that there's a huge chance that the rubber alien toy that appears during the scare is actually another toy that Sid himself also got from Pizza Planet, and that was part of his creepy experiments at some point. Buster. Another pet that probably met a similar end to Scud, unfortunately, was Buster, the adorable wiener dog that Andy gets for Christmas in the first movie. Let's think about this together. In the first movie, he must have been around 3 months old. By Toy Story 2, Buster was already a grown dog of about 2 years old. And in his last appearance, in Toy Story 3, the pet was chubby, having trouble getting around, and pushing 12 years old. Which means that for a dog, he was already elderly. This way, in Toy Story 4, the friendly doggo didn't show his face because he stayed at Andy's mom's house, but he would have already been 13 years old. The math shows that, in Toy Story 5, Buster would hit the 15-year mark. Dogs of this breed usually live from 12 to 16 years, depending on their health and care. Seeing how fragile he was back in the 3rd movie, it's very likely that he has already passed away. It's sad, but unfortunately, just like Woody said, some good friends end up getting left behind along the way, sooner or later.
We'll wrap up here, but if you also love everything involving pop culture, check out these 2 video options we're leaving for you on your screen. You can watch either of the 2. You're sure to love them.